What's up, Cam?
Mm, not much, Mitch. Happy to be here, though. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's cold again.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we do live in the Midwest, the upper Midwest. So that's what this does. But we're not in Montana where they got 4 feet of snow. So we can
The
count our blessings
what?
there. You didn't hear about that?
No.
There were areas of Montana this last week that got 4 feet of snow.
Oh man,
North
that's
Dakota, North Dakota had, I think, it the worst because they had just the straight line winds with the snow. And they had,
mhm.
when they showed the map of highways that were shut down, like, first off, I didn't know North Dakota had that many highways. And there was like red all over the map. And I'm like, pretty much stay home, don't go anywhere. This will pass. It's like, I swear that they were locked in their house for like 2 days up there because the way the weather channel made it sound. But I think
Yes.
they were averaging somewhere around 3 feet of snow throughout North Dakota. So all this rain that we've had coming through in the last
hmm
in the last week has all been snow up there. So it's crazy.
Well, I'm happy it was just rain here.
Yep, me too. Quite happy. You don't have to shovel rain. So
No, my tulips are starting to blossom.
yeah. Yeah, we made the decision this year to hire a company to fertilize our lawn, and because we have a lot, we have weeds and stuff in our lawn, and it's not as thick as I would like, and I just don't. I could put the work into it, and it probably cost me just about the same amount of money, but I just don't want to take the time. So sometimes solutions come down, and this is something I've discovered over the years. Solutions come down to one of two things: you either solve it with money or solve it with time. And because like I don't really want to spend the time on it, and I don't necessarily always have the time on it, solve it with money. So it comes down to one of those two things.
There you go.
So I want to do some follow up on something today that I was pretty excited about. And
Okay.
last time I think it was in the Delight Me section, we talked about Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker saga. And just a few days after we talked about it, it finally dropped, it finally released, and I was able to play it. And wow, it is really, really cool. Not only do you have all 9 movies to play through, which it's kind of funny because I get to certain sections of the movies and I'm like, they're making this for kids. So how did they handle this section? Like the killing the younglings in Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, children, it's nap time.
Although what they did was they were outside the Jedi Temple. Anybody who's watched the movie knows what happens, but they completely skipped right over it. So, which was good. The same thing with when Anakin killed all the Tusken Raiders
hmm
in, I think that was the second movie, in Attack of the Clones. All you see in the game is he goes into a tent. There's a bunch of um, like lightsaber waving around, and then he comes out, and it's just assumed that he comes out with Shmi in his arms, and then you just skip to the point where they're like burying her and mourning her. But
So, are you able to deviate from the movie plot lines at all, or are you just playing through the movies as a Lego character?
so here's the thing. When you play through the 9 movies, there's a story mode that you play through the story. Once you've completed the story mode for that movie, it opens up free play for that movie. But it also opens up all the planets you visited during that movie. So now you have 3 ways to play that movie. You can go back and play it through in story mode, which the game kind of requires you to go back and do that to complete, or like to take each level to 100% completion. So because there's all kinds of collectibles that you can get, and you get the currency in the game are called studs. They're the little round pieces. And yeah, not you,
They
man.
have my face on them.
No. um, but as you go through the game and you collect. If you collect, I think it's over 100,000 on a level, you get what they call True Jedi, and that's considered to be one of the collectibles that you collect for that round. And so you have to complete some of those in story mode. You have to complete some of those in free play, and they have different collectibles in the free play than from the story mode. And then there's one other thing, and when you came on to record with me today, I was playing in the, oh man, I'm gonna forget what they call it. It's like the galactic free play kind of mode. I don't remember what they call it now. But you can go in and just fly from planet to planet, very open world style, and just collect and just collect stuff. And the maps are pretty expansive, so it is pretty awesome what they did with this game. It is probably one of the best Star Wars games I've played, and by far the best Lego game that I've ever played. So highly recommended. There are hundreds of hours of gameplay in this game.
Yikes.
So yeah.
Well, there we go. I'm glad it wasn't a total dud.
Yeah.
There, because when you said wow earlier, I was like, well, this could go one of two ways.
But there has been chatter online about some glitches, some really persistent glitches that are in the game. I ran into one that was really frustrating, that I had to quit the level that I was on and go back and replay the level again to get past it. So there's some glitches and some things that they've got to update and fix, but it's very rare to run into one. And when you do, it's just dump out of the level, go back in, and it reloads everything, and then it works just fine. So
that makes me like really want to get on the forums and troll people and be like, there's just this consistent glitch. Every time I play it, Anakin turns into Darth Vader. Like, he's supposed to be the chosen one. Why does this glitch keep happening? I don't understand.
You're a terrible person.
Just watch the forum burn.
One of them that I keep seeing, that I haven't played this particular movie yet. I want to say, yeah, I'm almost positive it's The Force Awakens that this glitch is in, that you're supposed to go and talk to Maz Kanata on Takodana. And wow, lost.
Can you say that?
99% of the audience right there.
Yeah, can you say that a few times quickly, please?
Yeah, Maz Kanata on Takodana. I didn't say it right that time. Takodana. There we go. So Maz, who was in The Force Awakens, she's the little orange alien that owns the bar on the planet. So she apparently you're supposed to talk to her, but the glitch causes an issue where you can't walk up, and what you're supposed to do is walk up, you hit the A button on the remote, and you enter into like this conversation with her. Well, apparently in this glitch that doesn't work. Like, you walk up to her and it doesn't give you the option to be able to talk to her. But this is a pivotal issue. Like, you have to do this to be able to progress in the game. So that, people are complaining about this online. But beyond that, I think it sounds like everything else is working fine, and I'm having a blast with it. So it marries two of the things that I love: Star Wars and Legos. So, and some great games.
Yeah, I can tell by the things behind you.
Yeah, I have Lego Star Wars on the shelf right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just two pieces that I have. I've got I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more builds in front of me, another couple up here, and then there's a few behind the black curtain that's behind me. So yeah, it's cool. Actually, I've got another one over on the desk here. I think I had this last time we recorded, but I have my Millennium Falcon. So, and I'm going to go put this down before I drop it. Because that will happen. All right. Well, what's been up with you, man?
Not a whole lot. Just waiting for fourth and fifth winter to be done. And just honestly, I took the day off work yesterday. It was Good Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Was supposed to help set up Good Friday service yesterday morning. My alarm clock went off. I was like, 5 more minutes. An hour and 45 minutes later, I wake up to boom, 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 boom on my front door. And I'm like, in a panic, like, oh, what's going on? I look at the clock and I was like, oh no.
Did someone call a wellness check on you or what?
I open the door. It's my pastor. He's like, yo, are you okay? And I was like, would you believe me if I told you a little story? And so I told him how it's like my alarm went off 5 more minutes. And I looked at my phone, missed call from him, missed text message because I was, one of like 4 people that were supposed to, and apparently he's telling the other guys like, this is not like him to just not show and not respond. And, I live next to the church.
Right.
Like across the alley next to the parking lot. And so he just walked over. He's like, I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Yeah. And I was like, oh, how sad is it that I was so tired that he felt the need to come make sure that I was alive.
Yeah.
I'm super grateful, that he cares that much. But also I was a little bit embarrassed. He's like, well, apparently you need it. I was like, yeah, apparently I did.
At least he was.
But anyways, yeah. So, and then I had lunch with a buddy and just, I've been getting back into Gran Turismo.
Oh, interesting.
On PlayStation. So Formula One, I'm a big fan of Formula One, have been. But it's a game that requires skill.
Yeah.
And it's a game that I'm fairly decent at. Like there are other games that I play that require skill that I play because I'm not good, but it's still fun, like Fortnite or FIFA. Yeah. I play because it's fun, and Fortnite more mainly I play because I get to hang out with people that I enjoy and we laugh and have a good time. But I'm exceedingly average at those games. Gran Turismo, I'm actually pretty good at and I enjoy. So it's
that game. I played that way back in the day and back then, and I'm sure it's just as much now. You could really get in the weeds with that game.
Mm-hmm.
Customizing everything and even the steering and the acceleration. Like I used to do, I don't know if they still have this, but I used to do the thing where you could put the acceleration on the right analog stick and the accelerating and braking on the right stick, and you're steering on the left. So you were literally like to accelerate, you were pushing the analog stick forward. But you could really fine tune how much you're accelerating doing that.
Yeah, and now on like the PS4, which I have, the R2 and L2 triggers are pressure sensitive. So like if you just touch it, so you get the same thing but with the triggers instead of the analog stick.
Yeah.
But same concept. But yeah, I mean, you can change the gear ratios, you can change the camber angle of the tires, the toe angle of the tires, the brake balance, the differential slip, the downforce, the ride height, like all of that stuff, the weight, the power, all of that you can tweak for each car. It's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And the way it used to be is like you'd have to finish like a race series to win a car. Mm-hmm. Now there's like a daily drive amount. If you drive X amount of miles in one day, you get a car.
Yeah.
And usually like the it's like 30 miles. So if I do like 2 races that are like 6 or 7 or 8 laps each, I get a free car for 2 races. I was like, I got a Bugatti the other day for doing like a couple of races in a Renault Clio Sport. And I was like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah. So I remember the version, this was back on the PlayStation 2.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was probably Gran Turismo 2, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I remember that there was one track that I used to play all the time. It was just the oval, but you had to do 100 laps of the oval.
And endurance race, yeah.
Yeah, and you got like decent rewards for doing this race.
Mm-hmm.
But what they didn't anticipate is that if you set up your analog sticks right, you could just put a rubber band between the two analog sticks and set the controller down and walk away.
Seriously?
And they played the whole game. You just come back and check and see which lap you were on. I used to do that all the time. I made so much money doing that. Yeah. Yeah. I made
wow, I had
so
no
much
idea.
in-game currency.
Yeah.
So it was funny. Yeah.
The latest one, Gran Turismo Sport, they've got a Lewis Hamilton time challenge version. It's like an extra $8, but they videoed Hamilton. He's in this incredible simulator setup, right? He's got the super awesome steering wheel and the foot pedals and like, you know, the actual racing foot pedals, like, you know, a Formula One driver would have. And he's on this giant screen and he sets times for like, I think like 10 or 12 different tracks in the game. And then you get to race Lewis Hamilton, his ghost, so you can like drive through his car. Mm-hmm. And you get some serious cash if you there's like gold, silver, and bronze. So like his time is like here, and then gold is usually like within half a second, and then silver is within like 2.5 seconds, and bronze is within like 6 or 7, depending on the track. If you get bronze, you get 200 grand. If you get silver, you get 300 grand, and if you get gold, you get 500 grand. Mm-hmm. And so what I've been doing is I've been purposely getting bronze first, so I get that 200. Then I get silver, and I get the 300. So it's $500,000. And I'm going to do that for all the races. And then once I get silver for all the races, I'm going to go for the gold. Yeah. But it's like, I mean, I made $1 million in-game currency yesterday, just doing 2 races, getting bronze and silver.
Yeah.
And it's like fun because you're like, holy crap, I'm faster than Lewis Hamilton through this corner. And then you get to the next one and he totally I'm like, how does he go through it so much faster? Like, and it just challenges you to try and figure out like, okay, what is he doing to not lose grip in this, like, and it's like, oh my gosh, I might have a problem with this mode because I'm like, I have to beat him. Yeah. And then here I am, you know, like this guy's a 7-time world champion and I'm just a dude in his living room with a controller. And I'm like, I will be better than him. No, I won't. I will never be better than him. But the challenge, they dangled the carrot very well.
Yeah.
I will say.
It's good. So video games are fun. I don't think we've talked about it a whole lot on the show, but I do enjoy a good video game. I think to be honest with you, I think the pandemic has changed a little bit of what I enjoy now. I don't know if you've had the same experience, but I'm definitely way more into lighter, fluffier, funnier stuff.
Just because real life is too hard.
Yeah, some of the stuff is just like, yeah, life has been so serious and so like hard, you know, over the last couple of years, just based on the climate. And I've just gotten to the point where like we'll be looking at movies to watch, and I have movies on my list that normally I would go for and want to watch, and I'm just looking at them going, man, those are too heavy. I really don't want anything that heavy right now. Oh, well, let's go watch some cartoon or something like that because I just can't handle it. So I don't know if you've had that experience or not.
No, I think I've had the opposite, which is I think one of the reasons that led me to give up TV and Lent or TV and movies for Lent. It's like I was like really watching like dark, serious, like kind of like gruesome sort of, you know. And I was like, this is not good for me.
No.
In, you know, on a number of levels, right? So I was like, I need to so I canceled my HBO and my Epics and, you know, whatever. Like I haven't had Netflix in a long time. So I canceled all. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to watch it. Right. Yeah. And it's been really good, you know.
It's quite honestly why I don't think I've watched a ton of stuff on Apple TV Plus. Just because so much of their stuff is like verging on high art and so serious that I just don't find it interesting. Mm-hmm. Although I hear like some really good stuff about Severance, which makes me want to watch that.
That one looks weird.
Yeah, the concept looks weird, but I've heard that the finale episode is some of the best TV that's been made. Like it builds to this finale that is just really, really good. So I'm interested. But I got to carve out time to watch it. And right now, that time is being eaten up by something we just got done talking about. So, so all right. Well, do you want to talk about iPad OS?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good discussion.
I had a thought over the last week here, and I don't know that's going to be a popular thought. But we wanted to discuss like what the future we think of iPad OS is. So you've had some thoughts on that, I'm assuming. What are you thinking about that?
Well, what I want it to be or what I think it's going to be, because I think those are two different things.
Well, we can talk about both. We have an hour to an hour and a half.
So what I want it to be is a competitive option to the Mac for most people, not all. I don't think we're going to be producing Hollywood films on an iPad, and I don't think we should be, right? But I think that for the majority of people, and this may already be true for just consumers, right? Where the iPad is a comparable replacement to a Mac. If you're just surfing the web, answering emails, playing, a game or two, that just basic stuff already accomplished, right? But for folks like me and you that do a little more, we want to do some audio editing, or in my case, I can do photo editing on there now, but I'd like to do some video. And technically you can do that now. But I would like, as I've said, Logic and Final Cut. Heck, you've got Photoshop on there now, which is a great sign from Adobe. When do we get Premiere on the iPad? So my hope is that for someone like me who doesn't require an 8 terabyte SSD in my machine, who doesn't require top of the line graphics, that I could have the option of a Mac or an iPad, and my choice is solely based on what sort of experience I want to have, and not what limitations are placed on me for what I can and can't get done. Does that make sense?
I think if I'm understanding you correctly, this is particularly the reason why I started to shy away from the iPad as a creative device and went more towards it being a consumption device, is just because I felt like I was having to make a series of compromises to try and make things work.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and that lends itself directly to my point, right? Like, I want to be able to look at a Mac and an iPad and go, can I create music with it? Can I edit photos with it? Can I edit and produce audio? And can I edit and produce video? If I can get a yes to those on both machines, then my only choice in the matter is which format do I prefer and which operating system do I prefer, right? I'm not limited by what I can or can't do based on the things that I want to do, right? Which I realize is not for everybody. But I would love for the iPad to get to that point where I can go, I can do everything I want to do on both devices. Which device then do I prefer? In that case, I would probably take the iPad. But right now, if I want to edit video, I'm using my MacBook Air on a bigger screen. The other thing too that I would like to see, and that I'm not, I'm in a long line of people asking for this, is proper external display support for the iPad, not just mirroring what's on the iPad with the letter boxes on it. Let me use it as an external display. We have mouse and trackpad and keyboard support. Why can't I use an external display as an external display and not a mirror? Because I tell you what, if I could do that, then I would just do that and edit, because I edit my photos on my external display anyways, even when I'm using my Mac. If I could just do it on my iPad and do it, bada boom, bada bing.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm looking, my hope for the future of iPad is that it doesn't need to be competitive with a Mac Studio or a Mac Pro. it's not going to happen, right? Physics will not allow that in that, but it should be comparable to a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro in what it can accomplish. They have the same chipsets. Right now it's software limitations and what Apple chooses to pursue or not pursue,
So my question, I'm not sure how to phrase this. But the question that came to mind for me is why? Like, is there a reason why we should be able to take, let's use the 12.9-inch iPad that with a keyboard and a mouse and against a 13-inch MacBook Pro, you're talking about essentially the same screen size. The only difference between the two is you have a touch screen on the iPad.
Well, and a different operating system, and it's cheaper,
system.
And it's cheaper than a MacBook Pro.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
By how much? I mean, once you talk about adding a keyboard to it and a mouse.
But I already have all those things.
Okay, well, for someone who's starting out fresh.
All right, I'm looking up the iPad Pro. Let's go 12.9-inch.
I mean, and I'm not necessarily looking for comparable specs. But
all right, so a 12.9-inch iPad Pro with a terabyte hard drive is $1,800. A MacBook Pro 13-inch. Keep going. Is $1,900, so it's $100 difference. So it's not much. It's $100 cheaper for the iPad.
Yeah.
With the same specs.
Now, does that MacBook, does that have the? Oh, did you check MacBook Pro or was that the MacBook Air?
It was a MacBook 13-inch MacBook Pro, so it's not the 14 or the 16. It's the low end MacBook Pro. Oh, so okay. If you wanted, it's the lowest end MacBook Pro with a terabyte hard drive.
Yeah. So once you start talking M1 Pro or M1 Max, you're going to be going up in price. But
yeah.
But for the most part, like if you wanted one or the other, it's pretty comparable. But also realize that if you're starting fresh, you're adding a keyboard. Maybe probably the most comparable thing would be to look at that $300 case. Man, why am I blanking on the Magic Keyboard case?
Mm-hmm.
Because you get your trackpad and your keyboard that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I guess that honestly, the fact that if you add that to it, it's more expensive than the MacBook Pro in that regard, then why isn't it comparable to what it can do?
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you're adding the capability of touchscreen on the iPad. So, if you added touchscreen to the Mac and it was comparable, it was still comparable at that point, then I think the argument would be, apples to apples, but I think there's still a slight difference.
Macintoshes to Macintoshes.
Macintoshes to Granny Smiths or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit, this is what I want. That doesn't mean it's what Apple should do or will do. This is just what I want because I want it. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% rational or realistic. I just want to be able to do this on my iPad.
Yeah.
I love the modularity of, this little guy. I can hold it in my hand. I can slap it in a case. I can connect it to a trackpad and a keyboard magnetically. I can pop it off. I can connect to it wirelessly. Like, I love the different ways in which I can use it, all simply based on just sticking it onto something or popping it off and eventually hopefully plugging it into an external display. I love being able to do that. And it's not like my MacBook Air isn't mobile. It's incredibly mobile. The thing weighs like I don't even know how much, but like 2 pounds, maybe, right? It is a, but I can't rip the screen off and go take it where I want. It's always connected to the bottom half of the computer. And while that's great for getting certain things done, the form factor of the iPad is my preferred form. I love, I can add to it what I want to add to it when I want to add to it. And then when I don't, in its pure naked form, it is glorious and wonderful. Which is why I want what I want for the future of iPad OS, knowing full well that may never happen. But a man can dream.
Well, it's
So I've been told.
it's super fair to be looking at it this way. That I ask the questions almost a little bit as a devil's advocate. I get it, but I think that for the to serve the conversation, exploring some of those ideas, I think were useful. So
Yeah.
but because to me, like on the surface of things, and I think what we came down to was the modularity is really what gets you excited about the device.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if I'm sitting down and understand, I don't know when you started to use computers versus when I started using computers, but keyboard and mouse has always been how I've used a computer.
Oh yeah.
I really tried moving over to an iPad Pro for a bunch of stuff, and as much as I for as much as I wanted to learn and wanted to get good at it and all that stuff, like my muscle memory just didn't transfer over. I'm so comfortable. I think I discussed this on a past episode about why I use Adobe Audition versus Logic. Is Adobe Audition, I just have my muscle memory so built up in that I can fly through edits. I'm good at it. Where
Mm-hmm.
I use Logic for a long time. I use Logic for probably a good year or so between editing the church sermons that I do for church. And even when we first started doing this podcast, I was using Logic a little bit. And when it came right down to it, that $20 a month that I'm paying for Adobe Audition is way worth it for me because I can fly through these edits way faster in Adobe Audition because the muscle memory is built up.
Yeah.
When I'm going through editing our podcast, I'm editing it in multi-track view, and literally like I don't even think about it anymore. It's command shift delete, as I'm grabbing sections of the podcast that I want to delete and pull the rest of the track forward, just command shift delete. And I don't even think about it anymore. I actually tried to set up kind of a Stream Deck set where and I was just using it on my phone. I don't have a Stream Deck yet. But it's likely going to come at some point, but I haven't plunked down the $149 for it. But I had something set up on my phone there for a while to give it a try to see, is this something that I could build into my muscle memory, is just to reach over and hit a button. Well, the problem was my hand's already on the keyboard. Why would I reach over and hit a button when it's just as quick for me to hit take the two hands that are already on the keyboard and throw in a shortcut or a keyboard shortcut to do something. So it's just far easier and far quicker for me because that's what I've always done. When I started editing in Ferrite, I see the draw of editing audio in Ferrite. To be able to use the pencil and to just like literally there's a tactileness to using an iPad in that way. You got your pencil, you're selecting your section, you're deleting it. There's all kinds of these little gestures and stuff like that you can do. And, in the few times that I've used it, it works really nice. I just can't get past the muscle memory though. It's not as easy to use for me as Audition is. So,
yeah.
Now I do a lot more photo editing, that way. Um, because it's the device that I have, a lot of times when I want to do that. So, and that seems to work pretty well. But for me doing any kind of music or video, especially video, that's the only device I have and I've got to get it done right now. I'll kind of suffer through doing it that way. But if I've got my MacBook with me, that's what I go to. My MacBook Pro, I'll whip it out through that and I'll be good. So, but it's the different ways we work. So,
Yeah, and there, I mean, there is something to be said for muscle memory, right?
mhm.
And changing just for the sake of change, doesn't necessarily always work, or isn't always a good idea, right? And if addition works for you, then
So here's something that I think is hilarious. Where I'm at when I'm at work, I was in HR for a lot of years, and uh, we got all our computers upgraded at one point in the building. They went from like little Dell towers with a monitor to all in one computers throughout the store, and they're all touchscreen computers. So as I'm training new people, it was not uncommon really when you get some of your older people that come into the store, they get their job, and then you got to teach them a little bit how to use the computers. So, and I had a couple of instances where I literally had to start with, this is a keyboard, this is a mouse, this is what they do on the screen, and I had to kind of walk them through and give them that general base knowledge of how to use the computer. You know what's crazy? We have kids coming in today that don't know how to use a keyboard and a mouse because they've only ever used a touchscreen. And what's equally hilarious to me is that I'll walk into the training room and we've got a bunch of kids on computers, doing training, especially right now because we're working ourselves into the spring season. So we got a lot of new people and they're sitting there touching the screen, going through their little quiz and hitting the answers on the screen. And I walk in and go, "Oh yeah, that's right. They're touchscreen computers." Because it totally doesn't connect with me that these computers are touchscreen. Because I use one of these computers all day and I never touch the screen. I always use the keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
So.
It's yeah, I remember one time we were at a friend's house and their youngest boys were like 3 or 4, and they wanted to pause the TV, so they just went up to the TV and touched it. And their mom was like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "I'm trying to pause it." Like, and they're like poking the really, really, really nice thing. She's like, "Stop!" Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Like, why won't it pause? Like, it's not a touch screen. They're like, "What do you mean? It's a screen. You touch screens." That's what like they were like. Yeah. They couldn't comprehend that there was a screen that they couldn't also touch and manipulate. It was one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, we have reached generational bifurcation, like where things are just different for them."
Yep. Things are different for them, that's for sure. All right, so I'm going to make a controversial comment. I don't think that Apple's ever going to offer Final Cut or Logic for the iPad. I got thinking about this last week because I knew we were probably going to have this discussion, at least if not now, maybe around WWDC. Yeah. But I'm really thinking at this point that that's not going to happen, and the reason is it just feels like it would have happened by now. And with these new Macs that they have coming in, with these incredible processors and all this power, I just think that they're just not. I mean, they're looking at the amount of engineering that it's going to take to get it to work on the iPad and creating these new apps, and the fact that they just updated iMovie for the iPad recently, and they've got GarageBand already on iOS. I think it's far more likely that they're going to stick with the iMovie GarageBand, um, those two apps, and I don't think that they're going to move forward with Logic or Final Cut. It just doesn't
You're
feel
over
like.
here trying to make me cry, aren't you?
I just feel like maybe we need to let go of this dream right now, because I think that I
Never.
just don't know that it's going to happen.
Never. Do I even have iMovie? No, I don't even have iMovie installed.
I don't have it installed either. I don't. I You and I both have the 64 gig, and there's no way that I'm doing a lot of video on this thing. So, but we'll talk about that later, because I have that in the show notes, but we have not gotten to that point yet.
You almost just gave it away, man.
That's all right. No, we talked about it a little bit on the show last week, or last time. But so you got anything coming up in the spring and summer that you're excited for?
Oh boy, I sure hope so. um, yeah, I'm sure I'll take my daughter on a trip somewhere. I haven't really decided. I'm kind of waiting to see how everything with COVID flows once like it gets warm out, Um, I know things will probably remain open, but I don't want to plan anything super far ahead just in case something crazy happens.
Yeah.
But like, probably go up to like Lake Michigan on the beach and, get like an Airbnb in the house and just, chill on the beach and hang out. Other than that, just gonna, enjoy being outside. I'm excited. It's supposed to be, so it's like in the high today and tomorrow is like upper 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But next Saturday, the high is supposed to be 87, like literally 40 degrees warmer than it is now. The low will be 10 degrees warmer than the high for today. So I'm looking forward to getting my patio stuff set back up so I can work outside during the day, and all that. But I feel like I'm cooped up in the house. Like I always forget how long winter lasts up here.
Yeah.
Or should I say down here for your sake. And I'm ready to walk outside and not get punched in the face with cold wind, or, be able to have a picnic, or, go to my friend's house and swim in their pool and hang out on their, and just be outside.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what's going on next weekend. I think I might actually have a day where I can go outside and goof off. But we got 71 for a high next Saturday. Sunday 67, so it's going to be a nice weekend. A little bit of rain possible on Sunday, but nothing terrible. But yeah, that should be a good day. Stark contrast to the 33 degrees it is out there right now.
Yeah, I was looking at Carrot Weather, that view, and it's like,
yep, that's exactly what I was looking at.
We go from like 50 to 87 in like 2 days. Like, yikes. Yep. I'll take it though. Like, we're gonna go from having the heat on at night to needing the air conditioning on during the day because it's gonna be almost 90 degrees. Like,
oh, that's air conditioning on at night too. I cannot sleep in
the heat. But it's just like what happened to like being able to have the windows open for like 3 or 4 weeks?
Right.
Fresh 70s air, windows closed at night, but it doesn't get cold enough. You need to turn the heat on. Like, what happened to those days?
Next Saturday is going to be open up the windows day. So
yeah, just get some fresh air, man.
Yeah, my house needs it for sure.
Yeah, I need to get a screen door from our front door so I can just leave that sucker open and just
yeah.
Let's go.
Yep, they are not hard to put on, so
no, they're not.
That is
the issue is it just doesn't fit in my car.
Yeah.
So
well, there are companies that deliver.
Yeah, it's like a $40 screen door that they're going to deliver the 10-minute drive for like an extra $50. I was like, I'm
All
not
right.
doing that.
Okay. Well, do you happen to have a Home Depot in your town?
No,
No. Okay. Well,
no, we have the other guys. We have Menards and Lowe's.
okay. Well, I know that I believe that Menards has a vehicle you can rent.
Oh
Uh,
no, it's just me being lazy. I have plenty of friends
okay.
that have pickup trucks that I can
Oh,
borrow.
well, good
I'm
grief.
just being
Awesome.
lazy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But well, we have I did take the day of the keynote of WWDC off June 6th. So that's something I'm looking forward to because every so often I feel like I just need a day to nerd out. And so we're gonna watch the keynote, and then I'm gonna for the first time watch the State of the Union. So we'll see what that's like. Be fun.
It's much nerdier than the keynote. So
That's what I expect.
yeah.
It might just totally fly over my head, but it'll be interesting. Um, I do have a vacation planned for middle of June. The only foreseeable problem is this vacation is planned because we have my wife's family is coming to visit, and I like my wife's family. We're going to be with them for a week, and they're all going to be here. And I have a feeling that Mitch is going to need his studio time that week every so often. Just need my time to have quiet and do my thing. Although Father's Day falls within that week, it looks like that's going to span from about the June 16th through the 23rd. So it's like a Thursday to Thursday. And they're not all going to be here at the same time. It's like some of them are coming a little bit later in the week for less days. But it's going to be one of I'm basically told my wife already. Father's Day, we're going to get done with church, and I'm hitting the road by myself to go visit my dad. So I don't need any of them to come with me. And it'll be my time to kind of get away a little bit and let them be a family. And you know, it's not that I don't like them, but it's one of those things where it's like I just need my space for a little bit and to decompress, and then I can go back and be a civil person again. Otherwise, the my want is to not be a civil person, and I know that about myself, and so it's just as much me as it is them. I was gonna say it's more me than it is them, but it's probably almost equal parts. So because we're people, and
Mm-hmm.
and people are messy. So, but yeah,
This is
so
true.
those are the plans for the summer so far. No big travel plans this year because we kind of blew the money on that last year. I'm rightly so, but
Yeah.
and my wife and I were talking. Our marriage will on June 9th will finally be at drinking age, so that'll be fun. So our marriage can now drink legally. Oh, that'll be in June. So that'll be fun. It's still funny to me that people ask me how long my wife and I have been married, and I tell them, and they're like, "How old are you? You can't be that old." I'm like, well, I'm 45. Like, oh wow. Of course, kids aren't getting married as early as they used to either. So
Yeah. Although 25 is not super young. I mean,
not
it's
really.
younger than most, but like I know plenty of people that were married and they were like 20, 21, 22.
Yeah. Now my wife was married at 21. I think sometimes being in the church is a little different.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
That's very true.
we put so much emphasis on purity before marriage, and quite honestly, like we don't want to wait. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I snuck, you see how I snuck that in there without having to say any other words. So
Well, I mean, yeah, and now that you're bringing it up, you're making it blatantly obvious for
yeah, I
everyone.
am.
So thanks for making that uncomfortable. Appreciate it.
Purity before marriage is an important thing. And I'll tell you, when after my wife in the last 20 years of our marriage, I can definitely tell you that it's been a benefit. So anyway, moving right along. Are we ready for what delights us today?
Sure. Do you want
All
to
right,
go first, or do you want me
hold
to
on.
go first?
What's delighting you today, Cam?
Have you heard the good news about Notion?
I will admit to not being a Notion user, or really knowing much about Notion, but I'm sure that you've got a lot to say right now. So I'm gonna sit
So
back and enjoy.
I first started using Notion in like 2019 when it was kind of like the new hotness, you know. And I wasn't really all that impressed, and it didn't really. I just didn't stick with me, and so I just kind of like let it be its thing. And you know, I was
So what is Notion? Just for anybody who's not who doesn't, like, say my wife's listening right now and she doesn't know what Notion is. What, give us like the 50 words or less explanation of what.
So
You don't have to stay under 50 words. I'm just saying, don't, go on wax
it
poetic.
is a piece of software that is geared towards people and teams who want to build their own custom pages and databases. So like think of like, you know, wikis or knowledge bases, or like storing your recipes, or having like a reading list database or a movies watched database, that sort of stuff for like personal stuff. But also you can do it with teams as project management. So there's tasks, and you know you can do now. Well, we'll get into that in a second. But you can do different views on your databases. So like table view, list view, Kanban view, calendar view, that sort of stuff. And it's all really customizable. Um, and you can do a lot with it. You can do text, you can embed video, you can do images, you can do formulas like in Excel type stuff. But it's also kind of pretty, kind of. It's very opinionated, and how like you look at it, you're like, oh, that's Notion. You can tell from anywhere. You can also publish stuff to the web for public view, and it's free to use for personal accounts, which is super nice. So it does that make any sense? If it sounds vague and like you can do a lot, that's because that's the case.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at, is it's a little bit like Obsidian too, that you can kind of make it what you want it to be.
Yeah, the main difference being Obsidian's writing experience is exponentially better,
Mm-hmm.
and Notion is not a bunch of plain text markdown files. It is very visual.
Yeah.
You know, you can have cover images for your pages, icons for your pages. You can embed and see videos and images. It's got colors everywhere that you can or can't, or you can choose to use or not. And so the way that I see it is like Obsidian for me is still the place where I write, the place where I prep my lessons, the place that I teach from, the place that I store my reading quotations, like through Readwise. All like everything that is text based for me or is written is all in Obsidian. But what I'm trying to do is move my church away from Basecamp and into Notion for all of our projects and events and teams and all that sort of stuff, because it is so much more flexible. Basecamp's incredibly rigid in how it works. Notion feels way more modern. It's way friendlier to new users. It's incredibly powerful, but you don't have to know all of it to use it and get the most out of it for certain situations. And so I've been busy building out our entire internal infrastructure for our church, for all of the, the different areas of ministry, for all of the different teams, for all the different events. So calendars and document libraries and master task lists and all this sort of stuff. But what brought me back to it was like I saw a quick thing that was like, Notion updated, like biggest upgrade in Notion history. They've changed the way they do databases. And I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I've looked at Notion, Notion in 3 years, but biggest update ever. You've got my attention because I'm a nerd. Okay, let's go check this out. And so what they've done is super cool. Is so you have right now I've got a master task list database, and that would be every task that anyone in the church would need to do, but based on different properties for that database, I can go to like the Bible study team page, and I can have a view of that master database that I can filter for only show me tasks that are not done, that have the tag Bible study on it, and it will only show me those tasks from that main view. But I also have the opportunity to interact with those tasks, to change them to done or whatever, or to add new ones. And it's a view into the master task list. So it's not a separate table. So I don't have, your task list for your team is here and my task list it's all one giant task list that I can slice and dice however I want on any different page. And any changes I make all filter back to the main task list. And anything that I add from all those sliced and diced views all go to the main task list as well. So there's one source of truth for tasks, one source of truth for documents, one source of truth for calendar events, but I can slice and dice those and also change the views. So like if I wanted the calendar on my team's page, but I just wanted as a list view of the next 5 upcoming events for youth group, boom, but it doesn't change the view of the master calendar. It only changes the view of that instance of that slide. So, I mean, it's incredibly customizable and helpful and powerful for the different areas of our church to use the same information, but only see what they need to see in the way that they want to see it, but then still be able to add to the master pool. So, I mean, it's really well done. And you can have different views of the same database all in like one block, or I could have a tasks view that shows me my calendar or my tasks, the calendar view that shows me the calendar for my team, and then the document view that shows my documents for that team, all in one box that just have 3 tabs. So it's 3 different databases all in one view. So, I mean, it's really, really cool. So I've been diving super deep into it this week. And I'm in love. You're looking at it, aren't you?
I am 100% looking at it and 100% thinking this is going to be another rat hole I'm going to go down here.
But like I said, this is not replacing Obsidian for me at all.
Correct.
This is in addition to, because like Obsidian for me, that's all of my personal notes, all of the stuff that I've written personally, that I've written for church, all the less like it is my historical library of everything that I've written, right? Whereas Notion is something else entirely. But like I also have my own personal dashboard. So the other thing is you can have, even if you're on a team Notion, everyone still has private pages. You can do whatever you want on those private pages that no one has access to. Then there's workspace pages, which everyone has access to. And then there's shared, which is just a select group. So like the shared page would just be like, only staff members can see this page. Right.
So it would be something like if the elder team at the church wanted to have a page that only the elder team could see.
Right. That would be a shared page that is shared directly with them, and only they, but it's not a public workspace page. So no one else can drop in and be like, oh, what are the elders up to? Yeah. So like I have my own personal dashboard in my church team Notion that only I can see. And it has a filter of the master task list that only shows me the tasks that are assigned to me. It has a custom table of contents that shows all of the areas of the church that I'm involved in with links to those pages. I have my own personal separate document library that's just for me. And then I have a link to the master library as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix of public information and private information on a page that only I can see.
Oh, this is cool.
which is super dope.
Yep. I would be real tempted to bring this to the church after I have a pretty good understanding of how it works and
Yeah. Well, and here's the kicker, right?
mm-hmm.
Cost, right? Teams
Right.
cost. It's free for personal use. The Teams mode costs per user. And that the one thing that Basecamp had going for it is that they don't charge you per user. They charge you a flat fee. You can have as many users as you want. It doesn't matter,
Right.
which is great. They're the only ones that I know that do that. The trick with Notion is you only need you have to pay per user, but you can have unlimited guests, and you can determine what guests have access to and what type of access they have. So you only need the number of users that are going to be people that are going to be in here, like building pages or adding or removing members, right? So you have like admin, member, and guest. Admin can do everything. Member can just read and write access, and guests pretty much just read access, and you can determine what pages. And so the majority of the people that are in using Basecamp for us would be guest mode here. We would only need 5 or 6 or 7 people that are actual members that are going to be in here changing stuff. Everyone else is just going to come here for information and then go away. So it actually winds up being a little bit cheaper for us than Basecamp.
So you use the term wiki in there. Is this a tool that you can actually use to create a wiki?
Yeah, this has full backlink support, just like Obsidian does.
So if we created, like, I'm thinking about something like to be able to link from the website, if we wanted to create like a really good wiki that anybody could go and read.
Yeah. And so that's where the make public option comes in handy.
Okay.
You can make any page in Notion. You can make it public, and then it gives you a Notion URL, and then you can just put that in your website. It takes them to a web version of that page that anyone who has the link has full access to, but they only have access to that page, right? Okay. So if that page links to other pages inside your Notion instance, they're not going to work for that person because they don't have access.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm not sure how I would integrate that. It's just would be interesting to build it out in a way. I don't know. I'm thinking of a lot of different ways that we could use this, and I'm not sure if it would be something that would be useful for us or not at this point. But but it's going to require a lot more thought and consideration before I would take it to the church and share it with them yet. So, but very cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've shared this with like 3 people at the church that are kind of nerdy like me, but aren't the decision makers. Cause I want to, like, I fought tooth and nail to get Basecamp like 2.5 years ago. Cause before the church was just using nothing. There was no system in place for any sort of management other than what was in people's head from what we did last time.
Yeah.
And there was no communication. Like it was all just like text messages randomly. Like there's no central location for anything. Yeah. And so I was like, how have you been a church for 5 years and you have no information database, no community? Like I was like, and so I fought really, really hard for Basecamp. And now, but I feel like if anyone's going to kill Basecamp, it should be the person that brought it to life, right? Yeah. With a better solution. And I don't think I'll have to fight hard for it, but change isn't always
it can be difficult.
People are excited about.
You got to get everybody over to it.
Yeah. And the beauty is summer's approaching, which means all of our college students that volunteer are going to be gone. And so if there's a time to implement change, it's when there's the fewest people around, iron out all the kinks. Yep. And then when the college kids show back up, they're like, oh, we're using something else. Okay. Cause they're college kids, right? Like, they're used to trying the new stuff out. So anyways, I'm really excited about it.
Well, you blew my mind a little bit. Now I've got to let things settle here. So,
anyways, so what about you, man?
So I don't want to end this conversation quite yet because I do have one other question. So you're using this. Do you know Planning Center?
Yes.
Okay. So you obviously, it looks like you don't have a fond opinion of Planning.
I do not like Planning Center. at
for as
all.
for as many times as I've gone into planning center and I've looked at it and go like, I can't do anything here. This is like maybe, and I think I'm set up as an admin on it, but there's like literally nothing I can do.
I've
So
been using Planning Center for 8 years, and every time I'm like, where's that button? Like, it just,
yeah,
it's. But I will say this for handling event check-in and for uh setting up the service for the worship team, as far as like connecting to song select and having the charts, and
yeah,
there is no other tool out there that is better,
okay,
which is sad because Planning Center still sucks.
yeah,
And I don't feel bad saying that.
yeah,
I've used it long enough that it should be better by now, but they have doubled down on how it works and what it looks like over the years. And it's not a great experience for anybody other than the worship leader can go in and go, we're singing this song, this song, this song, this song. We're doing it in these keys, and it pulls the PDFs for like that part is brilliant. I will give them that. But so we still use Planning Center only for Sunday services, and then we use it for check-in for the children's stuff.
yeah.
But
So can Notion pick up some of the access of that? Can just from ease of use, pick up some of what I mean, obviously there's a few things you mentioned that it can't do, or that Planning Center is a better option for, but like for scheduling and for, doing that kind of stuff, you think Notion is a better option for that?
like scheduling like events and who's using what room when.
I mean, no, I'm talking more like, so I run the AV team. So for me to set out a calendar of like, here's who does what on what days, and, and incorporating all that kind of stuff in there, because honestly, that's what I wanted to do in Planning Center, but I'm not finding I can't figure out how to do that. I'm a smart guy and I can't figure out how to do that.
So so what you could do is you could create a database that is, tech team database, right? And then each property would be like, who's running sound, who's running the live stream, whatever the position is would be a property. Right. And then you fill that in with the person, and then you set it at the date for that. And then you just do calendar view. And so they would click on 2 Sundays from now, and they would open that event in the calendar, and they would go, okay, sound is this guy, and camera is this guy, and live stream is this lady. And then they would know. And then they could also, you could do that with the worship team too, bass, drums, piano, whatever, as a property, and then list it out that way. And then below that, you could put all the songs with links to songs. Now you'd have to manually do those links, but yeah, I mean, it's possible.
And I'm not looking to rip Planning Center away from our worship leader, because she does a great job with that, and if that's working for her, awesome. It's not working for me. And I think that looking at what you've got here with Notion and taking some time to dig into it and understand it a little bit more, I think there's something here, and
what something like Notion would lend itself to versus something like Planning Center is you could do the scheduling with Notion, but you could also have, best practices documents on this is the best practices for mixing sound. And this is, or instructions for how to get the live stream up and running and troubleshooting. If this happens, then do this. And it's all in one location.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's where you start to see some of the potential benefits.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about just like, about this much, just this little bit of what I can do right now, but obviously, like, there's other things I'm thinking, like expanding that into a lot of other stuff, which is why I was asking if you could do the public wiki thing, because there are tons of there's tons of stuff on the website that technically could be replaced by just a wiki, and it might, and I'm not sure if it would be easier or not to update. But
what do you guys use for your website? Squarespace?
We're using Squarespace. So it's still pretty easy. And
Yeah.
the fact that our worship leader and I are the ones that keep the website up to date, and she does a lot of the heavy lifting, as far as like text and events and stuff like that, where I'm going in and doing more of the audio stuff, with the podcasts and doing graphic design and I handle, let's put it this way, I handle more of the front page and the sermon stuff. She handles more of like the ministry pages and updating for that kind of thing. So
yeah,
but I also don't want to recreate like 2 and 3 different places for everything. That starts to complicate stuff for everybody too. So, but yeah. So that's
there
all.
it is.
There it is.
Which is next.
I literally spent like 2-3 weeks just like as deep into Obsidian as you can imagine, figuring stuff out and doing stuff. And now I'm going to be sucked into Notion, figuring this out. So cool. Well, I suppose I can talk about what's, what's delighting me today. Little interstitials throughout the show is delighting me a whole lot. It's anyway, I'm being silly, but
that's allowed and encouraged.
No, we were talking before we recorded that I set up my soundboard for the show because last time we made a joke about having like Family Feud sounds for when we do our picks, and so I had to grab these. So I had to grab those at least, and then I had to grab a whole bunch of others because I was looking for stuff because I know a lot of podcasts do like little sound effects and stuff in between their segments, and we might get a little bit more a little goofier with that and try to do a little bit more production as we do the show here. But I also like my goal from the beginning with our show was just to be a couple of dudes talking, and so I didn't want to do any real heavy production on the show. Which, when I start talking to like different podcast companies about the possibility of doing editing, this show is not the prime example of what I would do editing wise, as far as like fancy editing and stuff like that. But that's not what this show is about. So, and it annoys the crap out of me. There's a really cool Star Wars podcast that I'd love to listen to, but their intro is like 2 minutes long, and it's sound effects and little samples and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, dude, I am not going to listen to your podcast if I got to listen to 2 minutes of that crap at the beginning of every podcast.
Skip through it, man.
I could, but to me, they haven't earned my listenership because they're way overproduced. Dude, you're a couple of dudes talking on the air about Star Wars. Get over yourselves. But
yikes.
Anyway, what's delighting me today? Rants about the way that people produce things. No. So last time we talked about, I kind of let you in on the fact that I had ordered a iPad mini. Actually, I think that might have been 2 shows ago because it took a long time for this thing to get here. But I have it, and I have an orange cover on it, which makes me so happy. And this thing is amazing. And in the show document, all I wrote was #Cam was right.
Mm-hmm.
So as we've talked over the last couple of months, I've kind of come to this epiphany that the iPad really, for me, fits into a consumption device category. I don't do a lot of creation on it and stuff like that. What I do, and I hate it when I use the same word twice, but it makes sense in that context. But what I do with it is I read, I do Bible study with it. I'll capture some notes every so often and do some stuff like that, which is fine. Like I do that. But the primary stuff that I do with it is I've got my Bible app on here, I've got the Kindle app on here, and I do some reading online. I check Reader um, for my RSS feeds, which I might be looking at and rejiggering some stuff there because I found a new reader that might be not the reader app itself, but a new backend that I might switch to. But if we get to a point in the podcast that we can talk about that a little bit, or I know a little bit more about it, I'll bring that up. But um, but I'm really digging this device. And another hashtag Cam was right. I don't have any icons on my screen. It's just this beautiful, glorious picture that I took down at Galaxy's Edge in Florida that has a picture of, or it's got the right along the bottom, you see the Millennium Falcon with the black spire sticking up the side. And it just looks, it's a beautiful, I love this picture. And it works out so nice on this iPad. Although when I go into landscape mode, it cuts off the top of the black spire, which makes me unhappy. But it's I'm really happy with this device, and man, yeah, I've gotten to doing a lot more reading, which I shared with you before we went live today that I am going to I have registered and well I applied for and registered to start my biblical counseling training probably in the fall. So I'm really jacked about that. And there's a lot of reading involved. And thankfully, all of the books, most of the books that they have that I have to read are available on Kindle. So I can get those all on the device and read them this way. And it should be good. Unfortunately, a lot of them do not have audio, which I read much better when I have the audio to go with it. So I might have to look at some options for that. But yeah, so I thought I would have a lot more to say about this, but it's just really, really cool. I really like it. The size of it is so perfect. Like you were saying earlier, it's just the iPad mini, like my larger iPad. So a lot of like every night when we go to bed, my wife and I put our bed into, a seated position so that we got a fancy bed. And we sit and we read there. Well, what I was doing with the old iPad Pro that I had was I put it on my little Logitech Create case. You could fold it up like it was folded up so it sat up so you could type on the keyboard. Well, I would stand it in my lap and I would sit and I would read that way. And so I wouldn't hold it because holding it was awful because it got heavy and my wrists got to hurt. And this thing now I can just sit and I can hold it for a good long time before it starts to feel a little bit heavy. And guess what? Because you can hold it in one hand, you can switch it to the other hand. So it works out really nice that way. Now, if I can just get my cat to not try to push it out of the way to come sit with me, that would be awesome. Because then I could sit there and read. Although I like it when he sits with me. So, but I did something that I don't think you do, is that down in the dock, all the apps that I would want to have on the home screen, I put into a folder on the dock. So those are the apps that I'm gonna go to most often. So I've got a little folder with those apps in them. And part of the reason that I did this was some of these are bookmarks from Safari. So those you can't put into the app library and you can't delete, otherwise you don't have them. So like I have one for Mac Stories, I have one for Wordle, Instagram, because I don't have a iPad app. I saved a bookmark for Instagram on the home screen so I can get to that. So yeah. So when I originally showed you, I sent you a screenshot of this, the device, the way I originally set it up. Did you remember seeing that?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
So what I had done, let me see where I have it here. Man, that's a ways back. So what I had done with this device, and here's the picture here, is that I had a column. Now again, I have the picture um, from Galaxy's Edge, and I've got the black spire going up the one side. Well, I didn't want to cover that up with any widgets or anything like that. I wanted that to be open, but that's the whole one side of the device. And then I wanted to put widgets on the other side. So you know how I did that?
Did you use the old clear app icon trick?
So here's the crazy thing. They don't work on the iPad because you have landscape and portrait orientations. So they're not available for the iPad. And actually, there was one that I tried using that I had working on my iPad Pro that either got removed from the App Store or is not available for this device. But I could not download that app. So underscore David Smith makes a little app called Widget Smith.
Widget Smith. Yeah.
And so what I did was I created two widgets, picture widgets. And I spent like a couple of hours like trying to get this perfect. But I edited an image down so that it was just that whole column on that one side. And then I took each widget, I created what essentially is a large widget, created two of those, one for the top and one for the middle, and got that picture lined up perfectly so that it doesn't look like there's even a picture there. It looks really, really good. It turned out really good. So, but it was a lot of going back to the home screen, checking to see where it was off, then going back into Widgetsmith and adjusting it a little bit, then going back to the home screen and checking to see where it's off, and going back and forth until finally I got it lined up perfect. And then I realized when I went into landscape mode, it just totally didn't work. So I had the choice at that point. I could stick with this format or just get rid of the widgets and just appreciate the picture. And so I decided to do that, basically because either I locked this in portrait orientation and just didn't use it in landscape, or if I did use it in landscape, it would just be for specific apps, or just get rid of the widgets, put the widgets in the today view so I can swipe them over and look at them and swipe them back. And so that's what I decided to do, because otherwise I totally lost my ability to go into to landscape. So
very good.
So yeah, that's what's delighting me today. Now I do have one other conversation I want to have with you. Did you have something that you wanted to add to that?
Nope.
You look like you might have.
No, so it's fine.
So we talked about the update to Overcast on the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you decided that you were going to try Pocket Casts, right?
Yep.
It's Pocket Cast for the last couple of weeks. So how was your experience?
I have removed Overcast from my devices.
It does make my heart hurt just a little bit hearing you say that.
No, I like Pocket Casts. It's got smart speed. It's got voice boost, just like Overcast does. They're probably slightly different. Okay. But I like the way the Pocket Cast looks and operates much better.
So here's a question that I have for you. Does it have smart playlists? I didn't really dig into it.
I don't know, but I don't use those. So
and see, I do. So now here's my so problem.
It's got so there's filters, new releases in progress start, and I can create a new one, and I can filter by all my podcasts, episode status, release date, duration, download status, media type, and starred. So it may not be as flexible as Overcast, but it does have that feature.
So my problem with what you're telling me is that you quit using Overcast because you didn't like the pill the pill shaped thing, right?
Yeah.
The playlist
Among
thing.
other things. I mean, I've never thought Overcast was pretty ever.
Okay. But I got the feeling that that's what you disliked the most.
Well, I mean that was like oh my god, what's going on? Like we've reached
So
things have gotten worse.
so after we had that conversation, I decided to just what if I just eliminated all my playlists, and I only had a couple of them. But what if I just wiped those out, got rid of them, and used it without playlists? Now it was totally possible. The only thing that I lost was the continuous play because it would just play the podcast that you were listening to and then it would stop there because it didn't know where to go from there. Or if there were maybe if there was like two podcasts of this or two episodes of the same podcast, it would kind of roll into the next podcast. But if I wanted to go from, let's say I was listening to Mac Break Weekly and the next podcast was connected, it didn't just transition from one to the other. I had to go into the app, I had to select it and start play, and then close the app to be able to continue listening to the next podcast I wanted to listen to. So I did go back and I created another playlist, so that I had at least like the main podcasts that I would listen to throughout the week, prioritized the way that I wanted them. So yes, I have to deal with the pill, but to me, if you don't use the smart playlists and you don't use the playlists in general, it really didn't. To me, it just didn't feel like you really needed to anymore because of the design of the app, the way it would show you your recents, the episodes that you've had listened to, that you can resume them from there. It made it real convenient that way. I lost the continuous play option in there to not use playlists. So I went back to using the playlists. I'm going to be honest with you. I opened Pocket Casts and I started messing around with it, and I don't like the visual style of Pocket Casts.
That's okay.
It's a difference between you and I, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that I just didn't enjoy that. And for it reminded me back when I really just started listening to podcasts on my iPod. There was an app called Instacast, which I don't know if that's around anymore. I haven't heard about it for a very long time, but I used that initially, and that had like you would go in and look at your podcasts, and it would had like the cover art. I think the way that Pocket Cast does, and I just didn't care for the visual style of that. And when I moved to Overcast, this visual style makes more sense to me, and I like the list view and just the way it looks that way. The pill, not super excited about the pill. I'm hoping that he eventually pulls back on that or makes an option to turn that off or something like that. Even though he's pretty much said that he's not going to do that, I'm hoping that he catches enough heat from it that he's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
We'll
I will say that in the layout for Pocket Casts, you can have large artwork, small artwork, or you can also have list view.
Okay.
In Pocket Cast. So it defaults to the large artwork, but you can do smaller artwork, which cuts it down by like 25 or 30%. And then you also have the list view as well.
Does it have dark mode?
Yeah, you can do light or dark or match your system.
Okay. Because that's a requirement, because I pretty much do everything.
You can use the system dark mode. You can set the default for separate light and dark. It's got a bunch of different app icons, all that sort of goodness.
Yeah. No, I've gotten to the point where there's only a handful of apps anymore that I use that don't offer dark mode, because it's hard on my eyes, man. Ever since I worked overnights for a while, it's just every bright stuff just hurts. So, and that was years ago that I did that, but I don't know. It was just weird. Like, I just don't like bright lights anymore. So,
do you like big cities?
occasionally. I have to be in the mood.
Fair enough.
But anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to get an update on that because I was curious to see what your experience was going to be like. And, maybe I will look at Pocket Casts again and find that I like it. But to me right now, I'm kind of waiting to see what else Marco does with the design. I think that the pill thing was just an ill-advised idea from the beginning. And it came from his wife, honestly. So, cut him a little slack there, um, but I don't care for that either. I kind of wish I could dial that back to just a list item instead of it there having to be a ton of graphics to it. But this is what it is, I guess.
Indeed.
All right. Well, we can wrap things up for today. Do you have anything else that you needed to let the audience know about?
Happy Easter.
Indeed. Happy Easter.
Best
All
time
right.
of the year.
Well, if you would like to know more about us or to like to check our back catalog or even subscribe in your favorite podcast app, which apparently is a very opinionated thing, check us out at innerdialogue.show. Again, that's innerdialogue.show. And you can find me at mitchcraig.online.
You can find me at mitchcraig.sucks. Just kidding. I didn't buy it.
That would have been hilarious. Redirect to your website instead of mine.
Oh yeah, no, cambrennan.com.
All right. And all of our socials are available at our website. So if there's something that Mitch got this wrong this week and I needed to let him know about it, you can hit me up on Twitter and everything. All my links are available at my website, mitchcraig.online, and you can catch Cam Brennan at cambrennan.com. All right, man.
That is correct.
Well, we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks. Have a good rest of your day, dude. Bye now.
Ta-ta for now.